What's up, everyone? Matt Malatesta. Look at this. This is the new podcast. Kyle Coates of College Park is making history as our first ever podcast subject. What a great person to have on. Okay, out of the box. First question. The United States is completely decisive or indecisive or are battled with each other. But I've been heard and have heard people say, if the country just got a peek inside of the locker room field house of a Texas high school football program, peace would ensue. What is magical about the high school locker room / field house in the state of Texas?
I think it's the ultimate melting pot when it comes to just creeds, cultures, races, doesn't matter, right? You're all got one common goal, one common thing we're approaching, one team, one dream. You know, there's all kinds of sayings that go into it, but I just think ultimately that's where you figure out like all the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it. It's all for one common cause. So it doesn't matter what your religion, what your race, what you look like on the outside. It's what's on the inside that matters, and we all kind of find that and attack that.
In College Park last year, now you're moving into year 2. But what I noticed the most is you are able to harness social media, and that's where kids are, and you're young, you have a young family. Just talk about your philosophy on the power of social media to help brand your program.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's like, you know, you got to meet the kids where they're at. They're all online, right? Twitter, Instagram, I feel like more than not now, a lot of them are on Twitter just for the recruiting aspect of it. You know, I'm coming from the college world. That was kind of my background. So I try to use that as much as I can to hype up our kids. Hey, this kid did this at 7-on-7 this week. This kid had awesome day at camp. This guy crushed it in the weight room today. Here's him squatting 500 pounds, and just getting that information out there. You know, I constantly talk to our kids about, you know, being a college coach. A bunch of coaches follow me. So in knowing that, the best way for those kids to get seen is for me to pump that stuff out as much as possible. And so to me, you're meeting the kids where they're at. And then 2, as a parent looking out, if I know that this coach is putting my kid out there on social media, if he's putting out hype videos, if he's putting out different stuff about his program, like it matters to him more than just the X's and O's, just the wins and losses, right? So ultimately it's building the brand. Like we're marketing CP football to be something more than just, hey, it's a 1 year, hope we win this year and go from there. Like, no, we want to win all the time. We want to build this to be something that people want to move to the Woodlands. They want to move to College Park. They want to come be a part of our program because of what we're building.
Georgetown safety and quarterback many moons ago. What? Give me
Way
the
more safety than quarterback.
Give me the evaluation of you as a high school player.
Short, slow, great tackler. That's about it.
Perfect.
Effort guy.
So your path is really interesting. You play small college. What did you learn going that route?
So I left what then was a 5A high school as a starting safety for 2 years, thinking like I'm going to show up to this D3 Trinity University. I got good grades, so I want to go. My dream school was Princeton. I want to go to Princeton. I want to play football. I got an email back from the safeties coach. Hey man, you're not tall enough to play here. That's back when you have to like, you know, put your tape together. You send your VHS out. Yeah. We're still doing that. So I send a VHS out, and on the first part of the clips, you didn't used to put your height, whatever. It just went straight into the film. So he's watching, and he said, man, I really like your tape. You look great. Hey, by the way, how tall are you? This is an email. And I just send back, I'm 5'8", 5'9" with my cleats on. Okay, man, yeah, well, we'll be getting back to you. He didn't get back to me. So in December, when I'm finally reaching back out, it's been 4 months now. It's, hey, you know, we're going to go with some guys we're rated above you. You know, you're not quite tall enough probably to play here. And so at that point, dream crushed, thinking I'm not going to play anymore. Trinity comes along. The offensive line coach at the time was my recruiting coordinator. So he came in and he sat down with me at Georgetown High, dumped out this little bag full of championship rings. It was like, hey, just so you know, I played 5 years at Trinity because I redshirted 1 year. Said I've been coaching for 3. That's 8 rings from every year that I've been there. So if you want to come be part of a championship program, you need to come to Trinity. I was like, okay, what are the academics like? He's like, best in the state besides Rice. Perfect, I'm in. So I get there and I'm thinking 6A program, safety. I'm going to walk on. I'm probably be starting by the first game. I show up and I am 5th on the depth chart. Quickly work myself into like 3rd, 2nd when we get to the first scrimmage. Did not have a good scrimmage and found myself at 5th the rest of the time, my first year. So I kind of came into it with this idea of what D3 football was. And then what really opened my eyes, we had a class of 56 report our freshman year. and we'd go in this little team room, which was essentially just a classroom at Trinity. And Coach Steve Moore would go in there, our head coach, and would kind of talk to us each day, freshmen, just kind of checking the pulse, seeing how you guys were. Hey, let me warn you about sitting in your dorm room. Those 4 white walls are going to close in. Hang out with your buddies. Be out. Go hang out with people. Don't sit in the room. If you got a girlfriend that's somewhere else, don't worry about that. Focus on now, right? She's probably going to break up with you anyways, stuff like that. But he made a comment one time when we had the 56 of us in there. He said, how many of you guys were a captain of your high school football team? 48 kids out of the 56 were a captain on our high school football team. So to me, that's what D3 football really became. Like, we're all leaders here. Now, who can lead the leaders, right? And so that was always a cool deal for me growing up in that aspect, but then also seeing how many of my teammates, and then when I went on to coach at Hardin-Simmons, how many of those guys that I saw play for us went on to be coaches, just because that was like your natural instinct to be a leader of men. Oh, coaching, good philosophy.
Well said. So you touched on recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
High school recruiting right now is just so it's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Because kids, you're right. You're thinking you're at the top of the mountain, you're gonna get recruited, all these D1s, but now with the portal, talk about how hard it is to get recruited out of high school now, and kind of the mechanics of what you've seen being in college, the mechanics of now. What's the landscape of recruiting now?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's changed to the point where, it's always been the measurables. Like, you had to have the size. If I'm at UT and you're a 6-foot tackle, I mean, even if you're the absolute best in the state, it's going to be hard for me to take a flyer on you unless, maybe I can get you in as a preferred walk-on and bump you up. It's now to the point where, like, DJ Lagway, you better be the best in the state. You better be the best in the country, right? There's a lot of really good players. Being here in 13-6A, coming from 11-6A with DeSoto and Duncanville, there's a ton of good high school players out there. But what happens is you kind of fall by the wayside when you're not that 4-star, 5-star kid. So now the 3-star kid it might be a reach for you to go to SFA, right? Because they're trying to get the kid that left UTSA, and UTSA is trying to get the kid that left UT. And UT's trying to get the kid that left Bama, right? And so it's the trickle-down effect. It's kind of always been there, but with the portal now, it's become, basically from D1 to D1, where it used to be, hey, the D1 kid left, D2's going after him. The D2 kid left, D3 is going after him. So you always had that kind of step down where the high school kid kind of got slid down the chart a little bit, but now more than ever, I feel like there's kind of this philosophy that we took with our kids at DeSoto is, if you have an offer that you think you want to take, go ahead and commit. Like, lock yours in so that they're not going to pull your offer away. And then if something better comes along in the end, you got to protect yourself and you got to do what's best for you, right? So you see a lot more of these kids decommitting, but that's their way to protect themselves against what's going to happen to them if they find a portal kid. They're going to drop you just as fast as you're going to drop them. So make sure you commit to something that you really think you want. And if something better comes along and you think it's worth it, go ahead and jump ship and go to that. But ultimately, I'm still of the mindset, like, committing is committing, right? If you want to do something, stay committed to it. The hard part is it's not always reciprocated.
Why is DeSoto and Duncanville so good?
The branding, kind of like you already talked about, the culture, both those head coaches. I mean, you look at it, Claude's won everywhere he's been. Coach Claude Mathis has won everywhere he's been. Coach Reginald Samples has won everywhere he's been, right? They build something where kids want to be a part of it, right? So the comment always gets made with the PAPFs and kids moving in, this, that, and the other. But like, if you have something that kids want to do, you look at Forney High School right now. Tons of kids are moving to Forney because they do a really good job of branding their program. Hey, we're the Southside Rabbits and all that kind of stuff. Like, they do a really good job of branding their program, and kids want to be a part of it. And so, the recruiting aspect of high school football has always been something that gets talked about. I know it gets talked about still here in Houston, but I think it's just one of those things that, like, you build it. It sounds funny, Field of Dream style. You build it, they will come, right? You make something where kids want to be a part of it. You make something fun. You make something entertaining. You brand it well, and you put it out there on social media. You put it out there in the community, and people want to support you. People want to be a part of it.
You talked about DJ Lagway.
Yeah.
That district last year was crazy, right?
Yep.
You got Matower that goes to Wisconsin. You got Lagway. But where you came from, being the co-offensive coordinator for DeSoto, you already came from great talent also. But, looking at where you came from and last year, who really stood out as a player for you over the past 3 or 4 years? Because you've been in the mix of the greatest talent, over the past couple of years?
Probably talent-wise, just natural ability. Jonte Cook's probably one of the best players I've ever been around, bar none. And he was one of those players that, like, he knew it. The second he stepped on the field, he could go 75% and he's better than everybody out here, right? So it's fun to get those kids, because then you can figure out how do you push that button to where, like, he realizes, like, man, I got more in the tank even though I'm already that good. And that was one of the comments I got from the coaches at Texas is, like, he doesn't realize how good he could be. Because just naturally, I know he didn't get his 5th star on Rivals or whatever because he never actually ran in track. But, I mean, he is a legitimate go out and run a 4.4 kid. Like laser time, I can go out and run that. Throw me any ball, I can catch it. I can go up, I can go sideways, whatever, I can catch it. And it's just covering that guy at practice every day was really fun.
How hard is it to be a head coach? You're kind of at the macro level as a head coach, not an assistant coach. But how hard is it to get good assistants? And why are people not coming into the business of coaching and kind of leaving?
Yeah, I think everything work-wise kind of comes down to time and money, right? So I lost 2 really good coaches. Actually, I just lost my 3rd about a month ago, but I lost 3 really good coaches over the spring. They all got opportunities to get out of coaching, make more money, spend more time with their families. So it's hard to tell a guy like, no, you're a really good coach. I need you to stay in the profession, right? I went to New Zealand as soon as I left Trinity when I graduated, and I kind of bummed around for about 8 months trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And when I realized, like, coaching was my calling, it was going to really take something strong to get me out of it. But, like, my wife even, I made comments about, man, I hate that we're losing good coaches. She goes, when you were at Texas, somebody offered you a job that you almost took. You don't remember that? And I said, yeah, okay, well, leave it up to your wife to remind you of the the times that you blocked out, because no, I was always going to be a coach. I was always going to do it. But yeah, I think hiring assistants is tough, because now it's, you got to match your teaching fields. Like, I was looking for a quarterback coach for basically all spring. Like, how many really good quarterback coaches are science teachers? Not a ton, right? They want to teach PE, and they want to get to being a coordinator and not having to teach as fast as possible. I was blessed in that sense that, as the co-DC at DeSoto, like, I was the assistant athletic director. So I had no classroom responsibilities. I literally did football all day long, and then I went and gave an extra hand over at lunch duty just to make sure kids weren't getting in fights and stuff like that. So,
what is it like to go from on staff at University of Texas under Tom Herman, and then you pivot and go back into high school? And you see it a lot right now.
Yeah.
Corby Meekins, he was at U of H, and now he's at Lutheran South. You had Willie Amendola, who had been around, and he's at Concordia Lutheran. What was it like? First of all, what did you learn the most at being on the staff at University of Texas?
Football is football. I'll put it that way, right? So, like, I was at D3 for 6 years before I got to Texas. So my 7th, 8th, and 9th year in college football were all at Texas. I had just left ETBU as the defensive coordinator. I got hired by Scotty Walden, and then Scotty left a day later, so I can shout him out of there, new head coach at UTEP. So I was at ETBU, kind of felt stuck because the guy I was coming to work for left. Was there for 4 months and just happened to work some camps with UT. Found out they had a GA analyst spot open and leapt at the opportunity, and luckily was able to slide into that role. But it was really quick. Like, hey, football comes down to tackling, blocking, and fundamentals. Like, okay, this kid's really good. He's naturally a lot bigger than some of these other kids, but, like, he doesn't block well. We got to figure out the fundamentals, like all the plays and all that kind of stuff. Just from a standpoint of, like, being at the Division I level, you get way more time with the kids, right? Like, meeting time. Like, I went through some of our kids at College Park that first year were really adamant, like, I want to be a D1 football player. I was like, let me tell you what that takes. And so I pull out this giant manual from Texas. Like, this is our defensive playbook, guys. This is 7 weeks of install. We did this 4 times throughout the year. So they learned this whole book 4 times. I said, now on the front page, like, we start turning through it. I said, this is our calendar. This is what the first day of school was like for a freshman at UT. Wake up time, 5:45, blah, blah. So your whole day is planned out. There's about 20 minutes of, like, you don't have anything to do. And so I was like, if that's what you want, that's what D1 football is. If you don't want, then stop saying you want to be a D1 football player. But it's a job. They like, you're getting paid to do it now, especially, right? And so it was cool to kind of see the experience and be around some really cool kids. Like, in my office now, I've got, jerseys from Caden Stearns with the Broncos, PJ Locke with the Broncos. Heck, they all play for the Broncos now. They actually just picked up Brandon Jones too. But I've got all their first year jerseys, and it's all cool. Like, Coach, thanks for supporting me. Thanks for being there, being positive, yada, yada. signed on it. So meeting the kids and all that. But again, it comes back to like football is football. Like a 3-4 is a 3-4, 4-2-5 is a 4-2-5. How you need to stop certain plays. There's always new nuances that you get to a whole lot of extra time to sit there and think about. But from the standpoint of things, it really just taught me that football is a pretty simple game, and we try to complicate it a lot of times as coaches.
How big is learning the playbook? I mean, it's massive, and people don't, like you just said, people don't really take that into account. It's like, I'm just going to go out and be awesome. But the playbook keeps people off the field. Really great talent off the field. How important is it to learn that playbook? And there's no like cliff notes to it.
No. So like as a defensive coordinator, for example, when I left Texas and went to Westwood in Round Rock, I was a defensive coordinator there for 2 years. That first year, I was like, I'm going to take Todd Orlando's playbook and I'm going to cut stuff out of it, but I'm basically going to do this with these kids at Westwood. Figured out real quick, like some of this stuff, hey, I'm going to ask the outside linebacker to carry the back if he flares. Bad idea just based on personnel, right? That kid can't do that. So trying to marry it up with like the personnel we had, but I basically took this giant playbook that we had and then brought it down to about 7 or 8 concepts, and we're going to learn that. But I still had kids that struggled, but a lot of it goes back to like the same reason a kid struggles in math. You don't spend any time doing it, right? You don't take the extra time outside of the 45 minutes of film to ever watch film, to ever study your playbook. But then your dad and mom want to talk about, well, why he's not getting on the field. Because I can't trust him to do what I'm asking him to do. And from a defensive standpoint, if every 11 guys on the field, one guy has a job to do, and you don't do your job, so now this backer's got to do his job and your job, I can't get mad at him. I got to just replace you and put somebody else out there. And so, yeah, there's a ton of guys that I've seen in my coaching career that just didn't invest the time, haven't put forth the effort to learn the playbook, that were just really, really super talented kids, like kids at Texas running 4.3s that don't get on the field ever.
It's crazy.
Because, hey, we're playing cover 3 and I can't roll to the post. Why not? Well, I didn't know I was supposed to roll the post. It's a lucky call. Lucky means left. You're on the right. Go to the left.
It's simple, but it's hard.
It is.
It's a time investment. You talked about it earlier. Just the time. Now, speaking of time.
Yeah.
Dude, you have a 2-year-old and a baby on the way.
Yeah.
You have 0.0 time. What is it like to have a young family and be direct another 500 kids under your watch all the time? How do you balance that?
It's difficult. I'll put it that way. My wife and I have kind of started this. It's been recent. I haven't been great about it, but it's been recent. I need to have a magic hour where my phone goes down. I don't answer any phone calls. I don't talk to anybody else about their kids. I just focus on my kid, right? And so that ends up being anywhere between 6 and 8 o'clock. But I try to take my watch off. I try to put my phone down because I am bad about texting our staff what the plan is for tomorrow. Hey, updates on, have we reached out to this kid and this kid? He hadn't been at SAC camp. Hey, has anybody checked on this kid? He got hurt the other day. I want to make sure we're keeping tabs on him, stuff like that. And then I'm on our Sports U app all the time trying to give parents information. Hey, we got this coming up. Here's some important dates. Hey, remember to register him for camp, that kind of stuff. So it's difficult. There's a lot of time that goes into it. And, my wife jokes that like she never goes to bed with me anymore. She goes to bed after we put our son down.
Yeah.
She goes to bed, and then I work from basically like 9:30 to about midnight. And then I go to bed and then wake up at 5. So it's that weird, like, there's not a whole lot of seeing each other at night outside of getting to put him down and hanging out with him. So that's where she's really good. Like, this is your golden hour. Put your phone down, no talk. And so, and I'm probably sure there's a way better way I could do it, but that's just kind of where I am. Still young in the program, still want my hands on everything.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that Anthony Wood, my head coach at Westwood, told me when I took the job. He said, you're going to want to be in control of absolutely every detail. He's like, and you're going to figure out real quick, can't do it. It's like, you're going to burn yourself out real quick. And I felt that a little bit last summer because, I was coming from DeSoto where, 4 days a week SAC camp. Every SAC camp started with football before SAC camp. So it was, bang, bang, bang. It was a 3.5 hour day every single day. And we were rolling, right? And then obviously we went state. So I want to come bring that same exact recipe to College Park. And that wasn't necessarily what they had done, right? It's a little bit different. And, some of the seniors joked with me like, hey, when we got here, the staff this last year, so we didn't think the football stuff was mandatory in the summer. Like, why wouldn't it be? Well, because you never said mandatory. I'm like, well, playing in the game is not mandatory either, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Voluntary workouts. I'm voluntarily asking you to be there.
It is hard, but it's so hard talking to coaches that have been in the game a long time. Like they're at dinner and they're still thinking, man, we should have ran this play.
Yep.
It's so hard to turn it off. And people don't realize that. Parents don't realize that. They don't realize all of the stuff that's happening.
My offensive coordinator made a great quote probably about a month ago. We were talking about just football, like you said, why are coaches getting out? And I asked him, I said, hey, well, how much do you love football? He said, dude, I'll put it this way. Outside of my wife and my kids, I love football the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Being younger, that kind of connects you with kids. High energy connects with kids. How do you feel like your personality traits and your age helps you run a program?
I mean, I feel like at this point I'm still kind of connected. I mean, we made a joke the other day. So my quarterback coach moved back to Dallas. He was with me at DeSoto, really good dude, Hunter McEachran. So he left. And so I, throughout the spring, have kind of transitioned from being linebacker coach / head coach to now I'm working with the quarterbacks. And I just kind of was like, as the head coach, I probably need to learn this because I'm not going anywhere. So if I can always do this, I never have to worry about hiring another quarterbacks guy because it's been like pulling teeth. And so I've been kind of full-time with the quarterbacks. And I was joking with them the other day. I said, hey, have any of you guys actually gone into a brick and mortar store to rent a movie before? And they're like, you mean like Redbox? And I'm like, no, not like Redbox. Like go into a store that's 4 movies and rent a movie and have to bring it back and check it back in. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, I'm old. Let's do it. So
Blockbuster, no more.
No Blockbuster. Hollywood Video back in the day.
100 years ago.
You'd grab your snacks, you'd grab your video, you'd throw it in there, you'd ask mom if that was a 2-for-1 deal, can I get another video? I remember when you had to rewind it.
Oh, of course.
Be kind to rewind.
You watched a ton of tape also. Just the technology has changed so much. Have kids changed?
Yes, I think to the extent of like, man, I sometimes just walking the halls of a high school, it blows my mind what some of these kids say and then what they talk like, right? Just like the words that come out of their mouths. F this. I'm like, whoa, I would have never in my wildest dreams in high school thought about using any profanity in the hallway, let alone like go all the way to a hard F, right? And so that part of it's changed, I think, and I think that's kind of the bad side of social media is like they just get inundated with like this person talking like this person like, oh, I love following this social media person, and they just let it fly, right? So I think that's accepted in common society. I can just do that. And it's not like we as an older generation have done anything to kind of curve that, like, hey, you can't do that. I feel like now more than ever, like you write a kid up for bad language, what are they going to do? Get them out of class for a day and then go right back to class. So,
you talk about toughness. I mean, just reading about you, that's kind of like your mantra. Can you teach kids to be tough? Are kids tough anymore?
Yeah, I think some of it starts at home, right? In that aspect of it. But I think, I bring up a really good example of like when we first got there. Lonnie had kind of like taken the kids back a little bit. They didn't do a whole lot of tackling at practice because they had a bunch of injuries. And I get it. Like as a coach, you got to start looking out for, like we want to finish the season with at least 1 quarterback. They were down to 4, right? And so they were at a point where he didn't let them tackle a whole lot at the end of the season. So, kids remember what happened last. So like oh, coach, we were never allowed to tackle. I hardly believe that because Lonnie's a defensive guy.
Right.
But we came in and like, hey, we're going to do tempo drill at the very start of practice. It is a live drill. You tackle to the ground. I'm not blowing the whistle till he's on the ground, right? And so we started spring ball like that, and the kids were like, oh, yeah, like, oh, I like this. Well, you figured out real quick who did and who didn't like contact. So then it was like a same philosophy that we had at Texas. Like it almost like you feel bad if you don't like contact.
It seems like that's just your kind of general personality, and you're going to win, right? What does year 2 look like now that everybody's kind of bought in? You've had a full year under your belt. You've got a full off season. What does year 2 look like?
Yeah, we've been talking all along. November 15th is our goal. November 15th, first round of the playoffs. You earned yourself another one, then go earn another one after that, and another one after that, right? And so, I heard Kenny Harrison at Summer Creek talk about this at a GHFCA deal probably about 6 months ago. He said, we were really big on putting the vision out there for our kids. He said, so I printed off a whole article from a newspaper, and it said, Summer Creek wins state championship, upsets DeSoto. And then he makes a joke, I probably shouldn't have put DeSoto on there because that one came to existence and that didn't go our way, right? But I actually went out and, I took that same philosophy and The coordinators and I put together a picture of the Courier, right, and put on there College Park wins first playoff game in Coates era, moving on to the second round, November 15th or whatever. And so we put those all over the locker room, and I kept saying, hey, we're going to speak that into existence. November 15th, that's our goal. Make it to the playoffs. And then once we make it to the playoffs, we'll move on from that. The hard part for me is a lot of times you sit down with kids, you're like, hey, what's our goal for the season? Coach, we want to win state. Well, great. We went 4-6 last year. So what's the process to do that? So to me, it's a building of the culture of like now, okay, we won. So now the expectation is we win again. And then it just becomes a deal kind of like what happens at the Woodlands, right? Like I told Rap all the time, I admire that program because kids go there and expect to win. You don't show up like, oh, I hope we beat this team. Like, no, we're going to beat this team. And then we're going to beat this team. And now how far do we go in the playoffs? That's the goal.
Talk about, finally, just who do you pick stuff from coaching wise? Like, who are your favorite coaches?
Yeah, from a philosophy standpoint, like I got a lot of my defensive stuff, obviously from Todd Orlando, and then Craig Niver that I worked for as well. Casey Horney was my DB coach in college, and then we ended up working together as analysts at Texas. He's now, I believe, at SMU. So I've gotten a lot of my defensive stuff from those guys. Man, I've taken a lot of head coaching stuff from Jesse Burleson, who I worked for at Hardin-Simmons, and he's a Hardin-Simmons guy through and through. He's taken that program from the Jimmy Keeling area where they were winning all the time to he just carried that on, and now it's been like a really cool thing that kids want to be a part of, especially from a Houston kid. I had 2 kids that wanted to leave College Park to graduate to go to Hardin-Simmons. Like you're going out to Abilene, Texas, that you've probably been to twice, right? So he's made that really cool, and all the toughness, discipline, effort stuff I all got from him. And then just in our district, right? There's a lot of really good coaches that I've picked from. Coach McDowell and I at Grand Oaks, we talk all the time, right? Probably too much. Coach Hardiman and I talk a lot. Coach Rapp, Coach Schmidt have been really good mentors. I've gotten a lot of stuff from Kendall just early on coming into it. And like, hey, you're also a young guy. Like I didn't realize until probably just from the way he carries himself. But first 6 months, I figured I was, younger than he was. He's like, oh no, man, you got me by a year and a half. I'm
wow.
Like, oh, you've been doing this for 3 years. Heck, 31, I would not have been ready for this.
Finally, talk about the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Is it always at College Park? Do you want to go back into college? What I don't mean to put you on the hot seat, but,
no,
but what do you see? What do you see the future of your career?
Yeah, I'm big on goal setting. I told our kids early on in the off season, like I'm big on you write your goals down, you post them up somewhere, right? So one of my long-term goals was to always coach in the NFL. I always would joke with my dad. My dad's favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys. So obviously inherently that's my favorite team. And I would always tell him when I first started coaching, like one day I want to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Right. And so that was always kind of a like shoot for the stars type of goal. People ask me about college all the time. Would you get back into it and all that? And with young kids now, especially, and seeing what's happening in recruiting and now with NIL and paying kids and all that, I would have a really hard time wanting to get back into college unless it was for the right person, like somebody that has a family that understands that aspect of it. Because I remember there were nights at Texas where, man, we were probably done at 9:30, but we were there till midnight. So I'll let you kind of fill in the bubble of like what we were doing from 9:30 to midnight. But just from the time aspect and getting to spend time with your family, that college life is rough. And that's where I've heard a lot of my buddies that have gotten into the NFL are like, I'm never going back to college. I'm going to stay in the NFL cycle as long as I can and just keep that going. But man, I'm really enjoying College Park. I could see myself being here for 20 years. I jokingly, I applied for the Austin High job and was one of the 2 finalists for that. And every time I talk to Anthony Wood at Westwood, he'll joke and be like, aren't you glad you didn't get the Austin High job? I was like, dude, I'm so much better off right now where I'm at. I'm enjoying it every day, getting to coach these kids and having fun. He said, man, I'll tell you what. He said, when I took the Westwood job, I told myself, this is a place I could retire. He goes, College Park is a place you could retire. I said, I see it, man. I do. Every single day I walk into those doors, I'm like, how can I make the place better? Not to leave it, right? But just make it better for me. Make it better for these kids. Make it something that they want to come to every single day and like, man, look what Coach Coates did for us. This is cool, right?
So it's either we're going to NFL or we're going 13-6A.
Yeah.
Take your pick. That's awesome. Hey,
District champs.
District champs. This is Kyle Coates, super hot coach coming out of College Park. Amazing to talk to you. We love to talk to like really interesting people that kind of are gonna propel high school sports into the next stratosphere. We feel like you're one of those guys, what you're doing at College Park and tying it all together and having the coaching background. So watch out for College Park in the next couple of years. This is Matt with VYPE. We'll see y'all at the game.
This is Kyle Coates over at College Park in the Woodlands. Hey, I wanted to give you a shout out, all you young up and coming coaches. Join the best profession in the world. Coaching, I'm telling you, there's no better way to really live out your life's work, your passion. Be a part of this, man. Be good for kids, be good for their development, and come join and be a coach with us. Come join THACA and be a part of Texas high school coaching.